Welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Danny Cannell. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and all across the 24/7 Sports Facebook network. Woo, boys, it is time. Week 1 is finally here. Thursday, we will have a bunch of games kicking off week 1, and then the weekend hits you with games on Thursday, games on Friday, games on Saturday, Sunday night, FSU and LSU, and Monday night, Clemson and Georgia Tech. We had a fun draft for putting together our ideal viewers guide, one game for each slate on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That was on Monday. If you want to get a feel for some of the games that you want to keep your eyes on, between all of us, we gave.
That's a great still shot, though, of our guy Chip. Like, that perfect. Is animated. That just is the show in a nutshell right there. That still shot we got of our guy Chip.
All right. Well, now that he's gone, we can finally start the show.
You twist straight, Tom.
Hey Chip, you died. You were gone for a good 30 seconds.
Did you switch with Barton's old internet provider?
No, I probably spent time with Barton in person, and I think I caught his internet.
Yeah, it rubbed off.
I need to quarantine for 10 to 14 days and find ways to get to get new internet. All right, Tom, do you have some gloating that you want to do? Because we did have a poll on who won the draft, and I believe you were the winner.
Oh, did I win? I wasn't aware that I won the poll with the draft of who had the best draft. I thought Bud had won because Bud was on Twitter, campaigning for votes. And I just simply set out one tweet that said, hey, vote in our poll. We all know you're going to vote for me because I clearly won the draft. And wow, it turns out that I did win the draft. So, maybe Bud needs a better campaign manager next week when we do it again.
I'm just excited that I got 10% of the vote with this sicko slate that I'd put together. That some listeners said it looked like I was trying to get a confession out of somebody with that
was a great tweet.
The Alabama A&M UAB game as the lead game for my weekend, I think severely damaged my hope of winning the thing.
It made way more sense as a late round pick in the draft than it looked on the sheet, where it's like, this is what I want to start my college football weekend with.
Number 1.
Yep.
All right. So we want to, obviously, we're going to tackle some mailbag questions here today. Best way for you to get in on a future mailbag episode is to leave us a 5-star review. And in that review, put your question. We'll add it to the big old bag of mail. But before we do, and Tom Fornelli has a game show that he wants to unveil with Danny and I as the participants. Looking forward to that. But a big part of the headlines and the news that we've had leading into week 1 is the release of the depth charts. And with the release of the depth charts, we have the quarterback battles that are being settled. However, not every quarterback battle is settled. So wanted to roll through, not totally game show here, but wanted to roll through a couple of quarterback situations, and let's predict how this plays out. First of all, a shout out to Brendan Marcello of 24/7 Sports. That man has been keeping track of all 131 quarterback battles leading up to week 1. And that is
who's starting for Bama? Who won Bama's?
I think it was Brock Young. Brock Young is going to be the starting quarterback for Alabama. But listen, on Brandon's post on 24/7, he does have Alabama listed. It is not an assumption. You got to at least check in on such things.
That would be hilarious, though, if Alabama comes out in its opener against Utah State and Bryce Young's not starting.
I mean, they'd still win.
Yeah. They'd probably still cover.
Well, then if Alabama still won and covered, would that invalidate Bryce's Heisman win last year?
Yeah.
Would they be like,
product
system QB?
Yes. That is the possibility here. Mm-hmm. All right, let's start going through some of these. We will start in the SEC with LSU, where we've got Jaden Daniels, Garrett Nussmeier. Remember, Miles Brennan has decided to end his football career. That man likes hunting, and I don't blame him. He doesn't want to get hit. He wants to get out there and hunt for a little bit. Good on him. Best of luck. Brian Kelly has come out and said that they've made a decision on the starter. They're just not going to announce it. Claims that it would be a an advantage for Florida State heading into that season opener for the Tigers. So how do you think it plays out at LSU, Jaden Daniels or Garrett Nussmeier?
Jaden Daniels. It's Brian Kelly, so guys that aren't even on the team yet will probably play quarterback at some point this season, but it's going to be Jaden Daniels. And I think when Brennan stepped away, that kind of clinched it, because Nussmeier he'd missed practice time because he was banged up, hadn't he? So, Daniels has been the only guy that's been there every single practice, as far as I know, getting all those reps, probably most of them with the first team. So I think Daniels will be the starter.
I'm the same. Do you think they'll see both, or do you think it's Jaden Daniels, and if he plays well, you roll with him? I think that's the more interesting question, because I think you might see both, but I would lean towards Jaden Daniels getting the start because the upside, I think the running potential and what you can do with him as a quarterback, when you have a guy who can run the way that he can, which I don't think Garrett Nussmeier is in the same class as far as an athlete, it puts the defense in a bind. And I think you would lean that if there's no separation, if they're both kind of new to the system, look the same in practice, I think you lean to the guy that's more of a run threat to open some of those RPOs and some of the run pass option stuff that happens.
Yeah, I think if both play, it's either great news or terrible news for Florida State, because I do think that, like Brian Kelly, he does have a hook with his QBs and he does throw guys out there, but it's kind of like the Spurrier hot hand approach. Like, if the guy is playing well, he's probably going to keep rolling with him, but if he starts getting into trouble, then he'll try to mix things up. So yeah, I think it's possible, but I think if Jaden Daniels, there's a very real chance he just plays the entire game, as long as he doesn't play poorly.
Okay, well, what about from Alabama's or from LSU's opener? How about to Georgia's opener? Obviously, we know that Stetson Bennett, the king, is going to be taking the starter snaps for the Bulldogs. But for Oregon, we've got Bo Nix and Ty Thompson. Who do you think is going to have the unenviable task of going up against Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Keely Ringo, and the Bulldogs defense? Bo Nix.
It's Bo Nix, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's why they brought him in. I think that, obviously they wanted a quarterback they were more comfortable with and they thought they were familiar with and they could run in their offense. He's got familiarity with the playbook with the offensive coordinator. And I think he's also got familiarity with Georgia. Like, Auburn plays them. So it's not like it's going to be the first time he's seen it. It's not going to be anything new to him. So I feel like there's a chance he's not the only quarterback who's going to play, but I do think that he's locked in. He's the starter. I think that's why he's there.
Agreed. I think it's Bo Nix. Ty Thompson, I think, a little disappointed he didn't threaten last year. I think maybe he's, I don't want to say over his head, but another new system. It's hard for young quarterbacks. Bo Nix has played a lot of football, man. He's got a lot of starts in the SEC. And I bet Bo Nix practices really well. Just a hunch, just having been around a lot. I think that matters. I think he'll just be cleaner, crisper, and you go with a guy with the veteran experience in that environment who's played in SEC environments before. I think it's pretty easy. It's Bo Nix.
Kenny Dillingham is the offensive coordinator for Dan Lanning's Oregon team. He was the offensive coordinator at Auburn for Bo Nix's freshman year. I also believe that the answer here is going to be Bo Nix. What about?
Also, you could also argue Bo Nix's freshman year was his best year.
Yes, without a doubt. He was the SEC Offensive Rookie of the Year. So that was and do you remember who he beat in his first start?
Oregon. And he threw that touchdown late in the game. Yeah. And we were all like, oh my God, Bo Nix is going to be a superstar. Yeah. It was our first glimpse into, hey, this guy does some awesome stuff. And then we hadn't seen the other stuff yet. So it was just like, this guy's going to be phenomenal. He might be better than Cam Newton.
Didn't quite pan out that way.
No. Oh, we lost Chip again. All right. So,
all right. Can we keep it moving? On to the next.
But no, I want to ask you a question, though, because with Bo Nix taking over that job in all likelihood, do you think he is going to be better off playing in the Pac-12 than he had to be in the SEC, facing all those teams every single season?
So do I think he'll play better against defenses that aren't as fast and physical and loaded with NFL talent? Yes, I think he will. I actually think he could have a year that will challenge. I don't think he's going to put up numbers like Caleb Williams. I think Cam Rising will be, the second best thing. And then I think Bo Nix will be in a pretty good position to maybe be the third best quarterback. DTR's there at UCLA. I think he's flying under the radar, but I think he could easily be a top 3 quarterback in the Pac-12 without question.
Oh, hey, Chip.
Yeah, back. Cincinnati, Ben Bryant or Evan Prater? Who do you think ends up starting?
Fickle's doing a pretty good job of keeping this close to the vest, but I'm going to go with Bryant simply because I think that, Cincinnati coming off the playoff berth, Desmond Ridder has been the starter there for a long time. And you're starting the season with a tough game against Arkansas. And I feel like he's going to want to go, even though Bryant doesn't have a ton of experience. I think he's going to want to go with the guy who's been there longer and has more leadership, I guess, credit in the locker room, more experience. And I feel like in a game like that, in an environment that's going to be difficult, you want to go with the guy that's more reliable. But I do think both are going to play because they are different players. Bryant is more of your prototypical kind of, pocket passer type. And Prater has more of, he can run a bit more. He brings more dynamism to what you do offensively. So I wouldn't be, he's more like Ridder, honestly, than I think Bryant is. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if Prater gets some playing time. But I think that to start the game, it's going to be Bryant just to make sure that they don't put themselves in a hole early.
So Bryant started his career at Cincinnati, then went to Eastern Michigan, played a year, and then's coming back to Cincinnati. Something to me says that he came back because he knows he's got a pretty good chance to win that job, and he's got familiarity with the system. So I'm going to go with Bryant too.
We have a changeover at offensive coordinator too. Mike Denbrock was hired away from Cincinnati to go be the LSU offensive coordinator. So that's I agree with you, Danny. If you're coming back, it means that you're coming back to likely be a part of something. That's probably the play there. Okay. Sonny Dykes, the new TCU head coach, has suggested that they might play 1, 2, 3 different quarterbacks. I think it's 2 is what we're talking about here. Max Duggan or Chandler Morris. Who do you think ends up getting the start for the Horned Frogs?
I think Morris. I know Duggan's been there and he's got plenty of experience, but I just think that with Sonny coming in, like Morris is much more suited, I think, to his offense than Duggan is. Not that Duggan can't run it. I just think that Morris has much more experience in the playbook, has been running very similar offense his entire career. So I think that alone is probably going to give him an advantage. But I do think this is another situation. Like, honestly, I don't think we're going to see them play 3, but the fact that it's not entirely out of the question tells me that it might be another like Jim Harbaugh at Michigan situation, except, instead of doing a weird thing, he's just like, no, I'm going to play them all. We're going to let it, handle itself. So it'll be interesting to see, but this is a kind of game. It's like, you kind of wish if you're TCU, you had a softer opening than Colorado. You'd kind of love
Colorado?
To be playing. Yeah, you'd kind of love to be playing an FCS team this week with this quarterback situation, just to figure things out a bit more. But I do think Morris will start. I think Duggan will play. I think that this one's not really decided yet.
Yeah, I would say this is more one of the open battles too. I think it'll be Chandler Morris when it's all said and done.
Do you think he's a better quarterback?
I do. You've seen a lot more of Duggan, who's just been a little bit inconsistent. I think he's more of a runner, and I think they want to throw the ball a little bit more. And I think Chandler Morris will excel more in the pass game.
Yeah, it's funny because I think of Max Duggan. He plays in purple and for TCU, but he strikes me as a Kansas State quarterback.
Hey. Not bad. All right. And then finally, Indiana, where we have former Missouri quarterback Connor Bazelak. In Indiana, I guess incumbent. He was the backup for Michael Penix, got played every single time that Michael Penix was hurt. Jack Tuttle and Dexter Williams. What do you think ends up happening with Indiana's offense? Who ends up being the starter there?
It's got to be Bazelak.
Same idea where we're saying like you don't transfer. I mean, this is another Brandon Marcello story that he's been working on, but I think that the final count is going to be over 50% of the starting quarterbacks at the FBS level are transfers. And do you think you just copy and paste that assumption that Connor Bazelak did not show up to play behind Jack Tuttle?
It's not so much that as it's Jack Tuttle has been there for years. And Tom Allen and that staff are familiar with what Jack Tuttle is, and they went into the transfer portal and they got Connor Bazelak, who, I mean, he didn't, if you look at his numbers last year at Missouri, they're not exactly eye-popping numbers. Like, they're a lot of short passes for a high completion percentage, but there really wasn't much pushing the ball down the field, a lot of bubble screens and that kind of stuff. But I do think that that's better than the numbers Tuttle put up for the most part. So I feel like, yeah, Bazelak transfers in. I don't think they have a great option, but I think Bazelak has the higher ceiling. So I think at home opener against a Big Ten team, it's probably going to be Bazelak. And there's probably some hope that, hey, you know, fresh start, maybe not playing in the SEC, getting in the Big Ten instead of the SEC will make it a little, you know, more room for him to maneuver. But yeah, I don't think if Indiana wins this game, I don't think it's going to be because of its quarterback.
Agreed. Defense. Bazelak showed me flashes when he was at Missouri. I kind of like his skill set. I think it's probably going to be more the same, though. You know, it is easier defenses, but you're still in a lower tier team in your conference where it's an uphill battle to get good protection, to get a great run support, you know, great run game support. So I think it'll be Bazelak, but I'm curious to see. Walt Bell's their offensive coordinator, huh? That's who they went with?
Yeah.
Because it was a disaster, Nick Sheridan, when DeBoer left to take the Fresno State, now Washington job. I think they elevated from within and said, oh, okay, you just call those plays. And it did not work out great. So maybe a fresh system will help with Indiana's offense too.
Also, I want to see what Indiana has at receiver, because I don't really, you know, there's nothing
We've
there.
Lost the like names that we knew.
So it's going to be interesting to see. I think that could be bigger than the actual quarterback. I think it's going to be the guys catching the ball, making plays.
They're also going up against a Ryan Walters defense that was downright salty and causing problems in the second half for Nebraska. So, I mean, I don't know what you're going to do right there. I don't know how you're going to handle it on a Friday night with the Fighting Illini in town.
It's true.
Coming up on the other side, we dive into the big old bag of mail, including an idea for the future of Nebraska's head coach and a specific question for Florida and Utah, plus Tom's hot new game show ready to sweep the nation next.
The UEFA Champions League. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath acceleration. While Mbappe shines in the city of lights, Benzema's racking up the hat tricks, and the Reds want Mo Magic in Liverpool. This ain't amateur hour. This is the best of the best of the best. This is the UEFA Champions League. Stream every match live on Paramount+.
That's right, UEFA Champions League coming up on Paramount Plus group stage, but also Europa Conference League group stage action coming up too. So yeah, I know everybody's ready for Fiorentina against RFS and Hearts and the other teams from Latvia and Scotland.
Come on, pronounce their names. That should be the game show right
there. Okay, this first question from the big old bag of mail. A reminder, leave us a 5-star review. Put your question in that review. We will tackle it in a future mailbag episode. So this is from D Ham. Hard to imagine Scott Frost being back next season. Let's assume the interest would be mutual. I guess that means mutually parting ways. What would the next 5 seasons look like if Urban Meyer was their head coach?
Started here. Let's go. Start the push.
A lot of press, a lot of columns about how terrible it is that Nebraska's doing it. And then they would probably start winning games. I don't know. Like, if you look at what Urban has done in his career since leaving Utah when he left for Florida, like, he came back to coach at Ohio State, which is a program you can win a national title at. The question at this point is, do you look at Nebraska and think that's a place I can win a national title? I think that's the bigger question facing Nebraska right now than, you know, who you get to replace Scott Frost. I think there's something of an identity crisis going on with that program, because it is a program that has had history of competing for national titles, but is that going to be the reality in this new era? And does it still have that kind of cachet? Would Urban Meyer I don't have any doubts that Urban would be able to recruit because he's Urban Meyer, but would he be able to recruit at the level he was able to do at Ohio State, that he was able to do at Florida? Would he be able to convince kids to come to Nebraska and play there, with Nebraska being as lackluster as it's been? Because if you think about the kids he'd be recruiting if he took over the job next year, like, those entire kids cognizant lives of maybe paying attention to college football, Nebraska has not been good. So I don't think it would be just an immediate Urban Meyer steps in and Nebraska's good again, but I think they'd probably be better than they are now. It's just, is that enough for Urban? I doubt it.
There's no way he's taking this job.
No
way.
I'm not ruling it out.
So I think Urban Meyer's at a place where he still has enough cachet, even with the disaster that was Jacksonville in the NFL. He's not going to take a job unless he knows he has an edge, which is a place where you can have more talent than the other teams. And I think that was the case at Utah when they were still in the Mountain West. I think he knew he could gain that edge going to Florida. And I think he had that edge. He walked into a great situation at Ohio State. It's more of a rebuild. And that's why I do think like the Texas stuff always comes up. I do think that would be attractive because I think he would view that as a place where, yeah, we're Texas. We can get anybody we want. I do think it's a unique aspect to Nebraska because they have such a great fan base. They would shell out money that in this new NIL era, maybe you could buy your way back to relevance, buy some of those recruits. But I just don't know, especially now that USC and Miami are back in the game and Texas, like there's a lot more, no offense to Nebraska fans, but there's a lot more desirable places to play where you're probably going to win faster and it'll be a little bit easier and you can make just as much money, if not more. I think that's just a job that Urban Meyer would say, no, I'm above that, which is kind of crazy, but I do think he would pass on it.
I also think a key part of where Urban goes next, if he returns to a college program at any point, is that the bars on campus will have to have a strict no phones policy. You got to leave them at the door.
See, I was going to say Nebraska's the kind of insular community where they might be able to, keep the trust tree right there and be able to, get everybody on the outside and be able to keep things from getting out. I think that the NIL era, I think that the transfer portal era could inspire Urban Meyer to look at Nebraska and say that is a place where I can win a national championship. I think that Urban Meyer can look at what Lincoln Riley has done to flip a USC roster in 1 year, and he can think, I can go and do that if I can mobilize this. I mean, if the Nebraska fan base, if the Nebraska boosters get that whiff of national championship that Urban Meyer brings with his 3 national championships, I think that they would mobilize. Would Urban Meyer take it? I do not claim to have any personal relationship with Urban Meyer or understanding of where his head's at, but I would say that Urban Meyer can win a national championship at Nebraska if he wanted to take that job. And it is because of the transfer portal and the NIL era and the example of what we saw from, and look, Lincoln might not even win big. I mean, that team could go 8-4 and end up in the Alamo Bowl playing against Oklahoma. But, I think that Urban Meyer could say, look, I could take over Nebraska. And in 1-2 years, we could have the kind of talent to compete for a Big Ten title. I think it could work.
Here's why it wouldn't. And this is why Lincoln Riley took the USC job. The state of California, the West Coast had been pilfered by the SEC, by Clemson, by the powerhouses across college football. Lincoln Riley knew there was a void that was just begging somebody to step in and say, hey, you can stay at home. So he stepped into it. Mario leaves Oregon because Oregon, you have all those resources, all of those resources. You've got the deepest pockets out there in Phil Knight. And I guarantee you, Phil Knight told Mario Cristobal, I'll give you whatever you want. Whatever. He is desperate for a national championship. Phil Knight wants one for Oregon before his time is up, which is, he's in his 80s. And Mario said, I got a guy in Miami and I got a lot more talent in my state. I can go down there. Like, I think that's a challenge for Nebraska that they're going to face no matter who they're trying to lure to get there.
And that's the other thing, too, if you're Urban, you got to consider is, like Chip, you mentioned how quickly Lincoln was able to flip things around at USC. Well, yeah, it's much easier to convince kids to go to Southern California than it will be to Nebraska. And I say that as somebody who likes Lincoln, Nebraska. But the other thing you have to consider is at Nebraska, you've not only got to go through Ohio State, but you're going to have to go through Lincoln Riley's USC here pretty soon as well. So I don't know that a national title is truly going to be a realistic goal, even with Urban Meyer at Nebraska anytime soon.
You know what they did? They brought back the wrong former player. They should have gone and got Tommy Frazier and brought back the triple option to Lincoln and said, let's bring back the glory days. There's your blueprint. I'm surprised, Tom, you're not pounding the table with me because I know you're dying for another Power 5 team to bring back the triple option. I mean, who better would it be than Nebraska?
I would love it. I would love it. I don't think you're going to be able to sell it to Nebraska right now, but I do think, again, that is something that a lot of teams need to start considering because it's the sport is cyclical. Zig when everybody else zags, and that is definitely a zig.
Good question from John in the chat. Remember, we always appreciate, especially during these mailbag shows, you jumping in with questions and we will address them. John asks, what other blue blood job is realistically opening this year or even jobs in that next tier? So if Nebraska is open, and we've debated Nebraska's blue blood status even on this show, you know, what other jobs would be in the running for whoever those top candidates are?
Well, I don't think there are any blue blood programs where like the coach is on a hot seat right now. But we saw last year, Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma to take USC. Brian Kelly left Notre Dame to take LSU. So if something comes open, it could cause some dominoes. And I just looking, a couple commenters are mentioning Auburn. I'm sorry, guys. I don't consider Auburn a blue blood. You've got Alabama an hour to the west and Georgia an hour to the east. You're more likely than not going to be living in hell for a while there. But I don't know if Jim Harbaugh gets the NFL dalliance going again next year. Does Michigan come open? I mean, let's not forget. I feel like we just kind of just dismissed the fact that Jim Harbaugh was interviewing for an NFL job on National Signing Day. I don't know if that's completely put away. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but still, that's an odd situation. What other, is there an SEC job that you would consider a national title contender? And again, I'm sorry, Auburn, I don't consider you a blue blood, but are any of those jobs coming open? Because LSU just filled. Does Saban retire? That's the only one. It's like if Saban suddenly wins a national title and says, all right, cool, peace out, it's been great, I'm the greatest of all time, good luck without me. Does Urban Meyer go to Alabama? I doubt it, but maybe Dabo does. Then maybe Clemson comes open, and there's all sorts of dominoes that could go.
Florida State?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one that's kind of glaring out there. It could get complicated. I mean, the start week one, we'll see what happens Sunday night. I hope it doesn't. I want to avoid that. I don't want a fractured fan base. But, if you're 6-6, there's going to be, some strong push to move on to the next coach. I don't think that happens. I think if it's 7-5, you at least have some momentum. If it's anything above that, you're looking forward. Let's get going. Let's keep this thing on track. But I think it could get complicated if it's 6-6. And there's a former alumni that's, crushing it at Jacksonville State and Deion Sanders. That's when things get really complicated. Hopefully we don't have that.
This next question comes from Sparty Gator. Hello, guys. I absolutely love the podcast. It's a great way for me to catch up week to week on what is going on in college football. As someone who grew up in Central Illinois, who now lives in Charlotte and is a Gator fan, married to a Tide fan, I appreciate the diversified content from everyone's geographic area of expertise. Tom, I'm sure you know this, but if you don't, it would be worth checking out. One of the guys on Brett Bielema's staff is a gentleman by the name of Pat Ryan, who came from my hometown. Pat retired as one of the most decorated high school football coaches in the state and now is in charge of being the liaison between Brett Bielema's program and the high school coaches throughout the state. Also, as a former St. Jude's patient, I appreciate everything you guys are doing to help raise money for the hospital. I'm definitely going to get in on trying to bid for the Locks Pod experience. If I could ever share my St. Jude story or experience to help give the listeners some idea of what their money is going to, I'd be happy to do it. Now to my question. If Florida beats Utah, will it be considered a huge upset considering Florida is not ranked? Florida is still a slight underdog at home. However, I can't remember if it was Bud or Danny last week who brought this up on one of the episodes. Is Utah fully prepared to play 4 quarters in the swamp in August? I just feel that if the game is close late in the fourth quarter, Utah won't have enough left in the tank to close out the Gators. If we get the wrap-up show on Saturday night and Florida has beaten Utah, is everyone going to say it's the biggest upset of the weekend? Thanks for all you guys do, and I'm looking forward to the season. Marcus.
Love it. Love to hear the St. Jude tie in there too. That's awesome. Is it? I think Florida to upset Utah is becoming a pretty trendy pick. I think a lot of people are almost expecting this to happen. I know I was with Brady. We were doing our lock show on Tuesdays on CBS Sports HQ. That was his best bet of the week, was Florida upsets Utah. I think I've seen some guys on, SportsCenter and ESPN picking that upset. I think it's absolutely a game that Florida can win. Like, we'll do our locks tomorrow. There might be a play on that game. We'll have to see. But I think it could, and imagine the enthusiasm that'll be around the Florida fan base, which, has been, looking for something to hang on to in the last 6 months. And it's been a little bumpy ride with some of the collective stuff that's gone on, and where's Billy Napier's head in the game, and why isn't he taking more of a sense of, urgency approach with the recruiting? And man, you talk about winning over a fan base and giving some enthusiasm. They get that home win. That place is going to be rocking. No doubt about that. But I don't think it's a surprise at all if they win the game.
Just go back to the beginning of the question. Pat Ryan, I am familiar with. He won a whole lot of games at Metamora before retiring. As for the question, it's an upset, not a major upset. It's an upset by definition because Florida is the underdog, but I don't think it's an upset at all if Utah wins this game. It's an SEC team playing at home against a Pac-12 school. And I don't mean that as disrespect to Utah, because I'm a big Utah fan and I think Utah is the best team in the Pac-12 and it will win the Pac-12 again this season. But if it goes on the road and loses to Florida, even coming off a down season with a first-year head coach, I'm not going to hold that against Utah in any sense, because it's still a road game in an SEC stadium against an SEC team. So, no, it's not a major upset. As for the conditions of playing in the swamp, I mean, it's loud, it's going to be hot, and it's going to be hostile. So Utah is used to playing in front of that at home, maybe not with the same weather, but the fans are on their side in that situation. It's a little different when you're on the road, and it's, so I don't know. When you look around the Pac-12, there are some good environments. There are also some terrible home environments, as far as the atmosphere goes. But it's like playing at Oregon. Washington gets very loud. So it's the only thing that's going to be different to me is the weather. I think as far as the atmosphere, it's not going to be something Utah hasn't seen before. It's just, are they going to be able to deal with what's likely to be a hot, humid day? We'll see.
So Utah, did I tell you guys what they've been doing in practice? Like, they moved inside. He turned up the heat. He's been trying to dump water on the field to simulate the humidity. Because I think Kyle Whittingham knows. I mean, it's going to be a shock to your system when you feel that heat. And I was just in Salt Lake City. You guys, I was in Park City. We flew in and out of Salt Lake City. It's hot. So I could see you saying, well, it's 88 here. Like, it's hot. And it was.
Humidity.
But it's the humidity that does it to you. And I think they'll be, they'll have to hydrate. You have to start hydrating like the day before. And I mean, they'll be in shape, but it does kind of sit on you. Here's another thing that's as a quarterback, I couldn't stand early in the season playing in humid environments. Your center's butt will be so wet and soaked through. Now, not anybody does that anymore, but you'd get a snap under center and your hand is soaking and the ball is wet. And there's nothing worse than a wet ball. And you'd be like, what is happening? Now you can go out of the shotgun, but even in the shotgun, center's his head is over the ball and he starts dripping sweat on it. Like, those little things.
That's swamp butt.
Exactly. It is swamp butt. It starts coming to haunt you. So we'll see. I think the crowd is one thing, and it is similar. Crowd noise is crowd noise. Like, no matter where they'll be louder. It'll probably be the loudest place they've ever heard, but you can't hear yourself at Oregon. You can't hear yourself at Washington. I don't think it's that big. Everybody has silent cadence. It's going to be the same disadvantage for your tackles that can't hear the snap count. I think the weather conditions are by far the most significant challenge Utah has to face.
Yeah, crowd noise is crowd noise, but swamp butts for your center is the ultimate thing that you've got to get used to. Swampy center butts. All right, this next question comes from Hawkeye Transplant in Oklahoma. Love the podcast. I've been listening for years. With Iowa's defense once again expected to be one of the better units in 2022, I think it speaks highly of Phil Parker and the job he's done in Iowa City with primarily 3-star recruits. Excellent coach draft choice, Chip. If you think about it, is there a coordinator that's meant more to his team than Phil Parker? Iowa's offense sure hasn't been the reason for the program's consistency in recent years, but my main question is twofold. One, why does Phil Parker's name never seem to be mentioned when top-tier programs are looking to hire a defensive coordinator? And two, if he were to get lured to a program that recruits defensive talent at, say, a top 5 level, how much better would you expect his defenses to be? Or is Iowa's defensive success more predicated on schematics and fundamentals rather than individual talent?
So the question is, why doesn't he leave, and would it be different if he did?
Yeah, and I think that Jim Knowles is going to be a great, sort of test case here. He wasn't at Oklahoma State as long as Phil Parker has been at Iowa, but we are doing a lot of assuming, me included, that Jim Knowles is going to pick up Ohio State's defensive talent, and we're going to say, whoa, this is what you could do. And that Phil Parker might have that same kind of impact if he were given Ohio State's defense.
Yeah, but of course the difference is that Jim Knowles has moved around throughout his career. Phil Parker's been at Iowa a very long time. So the question suddenly comes is, why does Phil Parker not get mentioned for other elite DC jobs? Maybe Phil Parker doesn't want to leave Iowa. Maybe Phil Parker's pretty happy at Iowa. Things are stable there. I don't know if you've noticed with Kirk Ferentz's coaching staff. They've mostly been there for a very long time. Brian Ferentz, his son, despite I think 90% of the fan base revolting against the Iowa offense last season, is still the offensive coordinator. Ferentz doesn't have to just kind of react and get rid of people. As long as they're doing their job, you're going to be there for a while. And as long as what you're doing what he wants, you're going to be there for a while. And Parker's defense has been leading the way for that program for a long time. So there's no reason for him to leave, especially if he's happy there. Now, maybe if a certain job came open, I don't know. But if he left in a hypothetical and went to like an Ohio State or a Georgia or a program that has that 5-star talent on defense, I think it would probably, the results probably wouldn't change that much. I think it would just be another really good defense, because at that point, when you have that much talent, the scheme doesn't matter that much anymore. Like, the more talented your defense is, the less what you're doing matters. The less talented your defense is, the more what you're doing matters. So I think it'd probably still be a good defense. It'd probably still force turnovers, because that's kind of what the bread and butter of what they're trying to do is. They try to confuse quarterbacks, get them to make throws, and then take advantage and pounce.
When we talk about greatest head coaches in the game, I think I always try to bring up, we forget about the coaches that do more with less. Pat Fitzgerald, prime example, another big, upset win against Nebraska. I think Phil Parker might be one of the most underrated coaches in America, as far as assistant coaches. And I think you nailed it, Tom. I mean, some guys, he was a part of Kirk Ferentz's original staff there. He's been there the last 20 years. I think he's happy, I think there's value in that. Thank goodness I saw his Wikipedia page lists his salary at $595,000. I was like, whoa, he is severely underpaid. He did get up to $1 million, which he'll make through this season. And I think he'll probably be handsomely, another upgrade, another raise will come his way after this season too. But I think you always see a sound fundamental team that tackles really well, that is in the right place at the right time. And by the way, they also put some talent in the NFL too. And you develop that talent. So I think all of it is a tribute to the job that he's done. And Kirk Ferentz too, as a program, just developing guys, and bringing in 3 and 4 stars and develop them into NFL talent speaks to the job they do as coaches.
Yeah, and they do get their share of 4 and 5-star guys, but they really do, they've sent a ton of 3-star guys to the NFL, and they do it with regularity. And going back, Parker played at Michigan State. He was a defensive back, by the way, which helps explain, why their defensive secondary is usually so good, and so much of the defense is kind of focused on what they do back there. So maybe if Michigan State opened, he would take the head coaching job there at the alma mater one day, but I don't know that even appeals to him that much, honestly.
Isaac Terry did have a great comment in the chat. Making $500,000 in Iowa City is like $2 million nearly anywhere else. Definitely cost of living, probably a little bit better than Mario Cristobal's staff. And
you noticed the logo? You noticed the logo on Isaac's avatar there?
Iowa State.
Yeah. He's not afraid to take a shot at Iowa City, which is a place you could have a lot of fun, my friends.
Yep.
Oh, I need to make a trip.
Yeah.
Have you ever been, Danny?
No, but I have heard outstanding things about Iowa City being a great town. They know how to have some fun. They love their beer and alcohol, and just a very welcoming environment, fun time.
Food
Good
and
people.
frivolity.
I mean, just look at Chris Hassel. Look at our very own Chris Hassel. I mean, does it get any better than that?
Chris will be so excited that we got to give some love to Iowa City here today.
He's one wild and crazy guy. Watch out.
This next question comes from Chris, though I don't think it's Hassel. Is Chris in Colorado? Love the pod. You guys are my workout partners every night and have been for several years. Well, you can try the bike and tread risk-free at onepeloton.com, Chris, if you want to upgrade that workout regimen. No other college football podcast can touch you guys. Here's my question. With networks paying big bucks for college football inventory and wanting as much as they can get, why is the Sunday and Monday of Labor Day weekend so underutilized? It seems like several of the Saturday games each year could be moved to spread out over Sunday and Monday and get much better ratings than buried among 10 other games in the Saturday time slot. Is there something that I'm missing?
Shut up, Chris.
We're trying to
allow us to have a damn weekend. All right. Jesus, it's a holiday weekend. Let us be free. We have to sit there. We've got football all night on Thursday, all night on Friday. Then we've got 13 hours of it on Saturday. And Chris is out here like, why not give him an extra 10 hours to work on Sunday and Monday too?
But he brings up a great point, and I am shocked it hasn't happened yet. I mean, look at how week 0 has grown. And we talked about that. All of a sudden, we had 11 games this past weekend, and we saw some conference matchups. Somebody's going to see this. I don't think the networks have an embargo. They might. I mean, with the way the draft picks and the negotiations work, ESPN, ABC might own those days. But if they don't, I'd be shocked if it doesn't happen. I know there probably would be some pushback from the coaches. Hey,
bingo. That's why I think the reason that we don't see more games on Sunday and Monday is because coaches have told their athletic directors, who've told the conference commissioners, who've told the networks, like, yeah, we already, bend our schedule around your television stuff a lot. Don't do this to our team at the very, very beginning of the season. To do more Sunday, more Monday, throw the schedule off, have it impact your week 2. If you can't schedule like an FCS game for the short week turnaround, then we don't want to do it. I think that coaches are what's standing in the way. And I will say that we've had Labor Day weekend Sundays, not Mondays, but we've had Labor Day weekend Sundays that have had multiple games. This year we just have one, but we have had years where there's been an afternoon game as well. I don't think we've ever had 4 games on a Sunday, but it would not surprise me. Again, like you mentioned, Danny, if the TV networks happen to draw it up so that it works, that we might see more than one game on that Sunday, especially now that the NFL has cut its preseason and there's like nothing else that you're going to be showing. But I think the reason we don't see more of Sunday and Monday Labor Day is that the coaches want to keep this thing as close to the schedule that you are trying to implement for your team. This is what we do on Monday. This is what we do on Tuesday. This is what these days mean. This is what you're supposed to be doing. I think it is the routine of the famously maniacal college football coaches that prevent us from doing a full Labor Day weekend blowout into Sunday and Monday.
And I also think too, like, you could probably put a couple games on Sunday afternoon. And if you put games on Labor Day in the day, like, it's a football game on television in America, so people will watch it. But I don't think the ratings for a day game on Labor Day would be great. I think you kind of just want to limit that to prime time as the festivities are winding down and people are heading inside and getting ready to get back to work on Tuesday. Also, like you mentioned, Chip, like Clemson and Georgia Tech are playing on Monday, and then they're turning around and both playing again on Saturday against FCS opponents. So it's like, if you put multiple games on Monday, that's going to lead to a whole hell of a lot of teams playing FCS opponents or taking buys in week 2, which does that trade-off work for networks? Because nobody's going to be watching Georgia Tech versus Western Carolina or Clemson versus Samford. I can't remember who they're playing, but yeah.
That's that I believe that Jeff Collins played at Western Carolina. Rivalry game, baby. Catamounts in town.
Jeff Collins, maybe he's auditioning for a job.
All right, now it is time for the game show that is set to sweep the nation. And depending on how this goes, maybe it'll have its own theme song. So, Tom, why don't you introduce the game show as we prepare to play Where He Been?
Actually, Chip, the game is called Where He Been.
Where He Been?
Where He Been. This is a game idea that I stole from another podcast called the Football Ramble, but I'm sure they stole it from somebody else because all game shows are pretty much the same thing, reformatted 1,000 different ways. But here's the basic premise, and I'm going to have to rely on both of you who are sitting at a computer screen not to cheat. So I'd like to see hands in the air the entire game. But also, listeners, people viewing us live right now, don't spoil it in the comments. Don't
help me out.
Yeah, no, don't. But here's the premise of the game. I am going to name a college football coach. I'm going to tell you how many schools or places that coach has coached. It could be college, it could be NFL, it could be an assistant, it could be the head coach.
No. Okay.
And then the two of you are going to bid on how many schools you can name where that coach has been. And say, Chip, if I give you a coach and you bid 3, Danny, you then have the option to outbid him and go to 4, or you could say, do it. If Chip does it, he gets a point. If he doesn't, you get the point. 3 coaches, 2 points wins. If somebody sweeps, we'll still do the third coach just because it helps fill time. So, Chip, as the regular host, I'm going to concede to you the first choice. Our first coach, and where he been, is Ohio State coach Ryan Day. And I probably shouldn't have said that Ohio State part, but I feel like you're both going to get that one right. So whatever. Ryan Day has coached at 7 different places. How many of them do you think you can name?
I bid 4.
4. Danny, do you match? You want to go to 5 or are you going to let him prove it?
So I'd have to say 5 to beat him.
Yeah. And if you get it wrong, he would then get the point. Prove it. All right, Chip. Name your 4.
Ohio State.
Correct.
The Philadelphia Eagles.
Correct.
Boston College.
Correct.
New Hampshire.
Correct.
Man.
Bang. 4.
Where are the others?
The 7 places overall are New Hampshire, Boston College. He was at Florida. He was at Temple. He was with the Eagles. He was with the 49ers after the Eagles. And then he took over the Ohio State job. So, Chip, that is a point for you.
He was a New Hampshire quarterback, I believe, for
under Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Danny, now it's your turn. Our next coach is Kirby Smart, who has coached at 6 schools. So, Danny, where he been?
I'll go 3.
3. Chip, can you beat that?
I think I can match.
No, you got to beat it.
Oh, yeah, I can beat it. I can go 4.
Oh, Danny, you going to go 5?
No.
All right, Chip, name 4.
Okay. Here we go. LSU.
Bing.
Miami Dolphins.
2.
Alabama.
3.
And Georgia.
4.
Oh,
Bang.
Yeah, 3 with Saban, and then
Chip with the clean sweep.
Georgia.
Do you know any guesses as to what the other 2 jobs are?
Is it Valdosta State or something?
There's
like
5, but what's the 6th?
Wow.
Danny, you should know the 6th. Danny,
He was not at Florida State, was he?
he was at Florida State.
What year? What year was he at Florida State with Jimbo?
Let me look it up real quick because I don't have it right in front of me.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, he coached at Florida State in
Well, no wonder he's done such a great job.
2002, 2003. 2003 as a grad assistant. That's where he went from Valdosta
Wow.
State. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wow. That was when I was in the NFL and didn't pay attention at all to any college football whatsoever. I was just trying to keep a job.
I was in the NFL. Excuse. Sorry, I was too busy being an NFL quarterback.
That would have been really bad. Dana said Danny was the QB. That would have been really bad. I don't know if I can name all the GAs, but that would have made me look really bad if he was actually on the staff when I was there. I missed him by a few years, thankfully. That would have been awful.
So,
right,
hold on. A quick sidebar. Jimbo has was Jimbo at Valdosta too, or was he at Samford? He might have been at Samford, right? There's the Valdosta, Samford. There was some connection, and maybe even
Stop doing
Bowden.
research for future editions of the game, Chip.
Oh,
I know what you're doing. You're trying to get a head start on next week's Where He Been. All right. So, Chip, you win. You win the inaugural, but
Let's keep playing. Yeah,
we got one more
There's
left.
a 10-year window I blanked on college football, so it's not fair.
Don't worry. This next coach is not in either of your windows.
Okay.
Bear Bryant coached at 8 different schools. Chip, How many of them can you name?
I bid 3.
3. Daniel, can you match that?
I'll
or
go
get to 4.
I'll go 4.
Oh, Chip, are you going to go 5?
Prove it.
All right. Name
All
4
right.
schools where Bear Bryant been.
Kentucky,
1,
Texas A&M,
2,
Bama.
3, and now it gets tricky.
Now, if I guess wrong, do I get another guess?
No, you
I
lose.
can't rattle. Oh, shoot.
You got to know where he been.
I didn't know this aspect. I just looked it up because he won. Oh, this is killing me. Just looked this up. What conference was it in?
I'm not giving you hints. You got 10 seconds.
Mississippi State. That's a total wild card.
Danny loses. Good. I love the fight, though. I love that you went for it.
Yeah.
All right. So you got Alabama, you got Kentucky, you got Texas A&M. The other schools. He
won at every one, by the way.
Mm-hmm. He started his career at Union as an assistant in 1936. He spent 1 season at Union. Then he went on to Alabama for 5 years as an assistant. And after that, he took the Barton Simmons route, went to Vanderbilt for 2 seasons where he was an assistant. And then this is what I love about like old timey, like pre-World War II football. He spent a season at Georgia Pre-Flight in 1942, spent a season at North Carolina Pre-Flight in 1944. And then his first head coaching job, 1945 at Maryland, 1 season. Then he took the Kentucky job. That took him to Texas A&M, and then he went to Alabama, which is where he finished his coaching career.
Mm. Would you have had the 4? Could you have gone 4?
No, that's why I said prove it. I can only do 3.
See, the Maryland, I knew nobody was going to get the pre-flight ones. The question was anybody going to remember that he started at Maryland for a year? And I didn't think anybody would.
What was his record?
Let me check. He went in
I'm
his
still
one
not
season,
using my typing fingers.
went 6-2-1.
I'm telling you,
3-2 in the Southern Conference. So, Chip, congratulations on winning the inaugural edition.
In a blowout.
Where he been?
I might have gotten North Carolina pre-flight, but it somehow gets a little bit mixed up because prior to, do you know who was the head coach at Alabama before Bear Bryant?
Oh, it was God, not off the top of my head.
I believe it was Wallace Wade who left Alabama to go be the head coach at Duke.
All to get his name on the stadium. That's what lured him away.
That was a few years earlier.
Okay.
Wallace Wade was at Alabama from 23 to 30. Then it was Chicago White Sox Hall of Famer Frank Thomas from 1931 to 1946, followed by Harold Drew from 47 to 54. Then Jennings B. Whitworth, which is a name that sounds like he should be coaching at North Carolina, but no, he was at Alabama for 3 seasons. And then that Bear Bryant guy took over for him after he went. Do you want to know what Jennings B. Whitworth's record was at Alabama in 3 seasons? 4-24-2. Do you think a coach would be able to lose 24 games with only 4 wins in Alabama these days? Like Jennings Whitworth got 3 seasons going 4-24.
So I don't want to single out specifically Willie Taggart or Chad Morris. So I call that getting Morris Taggarted when you get axed in your second season. Yeah. Chad Morris and Willie Taggart did not make it to the end of their second season at Arkansas and Florida State. And that was when I knew that the game had changed for hot seats. They'll run you out of town that quick. Love the game, Tom.
It was a good game.
Yeah, it's a very good game. We will definitely do that again tomorrow, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Week 1 locks. Come and hang out and watch it live. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, hit the bell for notifications so that you can get a reminder right to your device. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fernelli. You can follow him at Danny Cannell. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.